cannot tell you how grateful I am for everything that you guys are communicating with me about the feedback of where we're going with what we've been discussing the last few videos. Honestly, I'm lost. I'm just a kid speaking his mind as I'm learning these lessons, trying to figure out what is actually going on in this perception or illusion, right, of reality, and how can I go ahead and help myself along with those who may be willing to give me their attention, the opportunity to think a little bit differently about how this entire reality really operates. And it's not about how it operates, it's how you move within the reality that you are actually participating in, because really it's you that can enter the past and the future simultaneously right now. All you got to do is close your eyes. And the truth is, most of us won't do it. We won't close our eyes because we're too attached to reality, because we can't imagine a world where there is no vision, where there is no senses, where there is no touching, feeling, and being a part of something. So when you close your eyes and you enter the darkness, you start to fear that world which you don't understand, because it's your traumas and your potential. And you see, a lot of the times we kind of drift away from what is our potential because we're so overwhelmed with the traumas. And it really starts to kind of tear down on what is your energy. And your energy is ultimately, it's how you see yourself when you look in the mirror. Looking in the mirror and not being able to stand your own self is a direct proof or a sign, a symptom that you have to face your traumas. Most of us won't do it. I need you to think about that for a little bit before you think about trying to make a world impact, because man, it took me a long time and I still have to work through it. You know, just recently, we had our entire infrastructure collapse because, as you know, I'm not a coder. I'm an athlete trying to make this dream happen. And a lot of the back-end infrastructure of the nodes that we were operating were basically taken offline, and it kind of brought up a lot of these mistakes that I've been creating for myself, or these situations that I've been creating for myself, by not positioning myself in the proper places of education and preparation in cybersecurity, and more importantly, with how to actually run something that could be diversified enough so that that way it can sustain the foundations, it could sustain itself through any type of situation that may occur over time. And so going back to the drawing board, really regrouping and being able to understand a little bit more about long-term debt cycles and short-term debt cycles, and being able to understand what different mentors are saying about whether it's the stock market, the real estate market, the housing market, whether it's the crypto, whatever it is. The idea here is that we start to understand the foundation of what it means to be involved with being part of this economy, what it means to give value to the economy, what it means to partake in the economy, to see it grow. And really, how do you become someone that goes from just being on the streets as a participant, or as some would say, a consumer, and become a producer, right? Because to become a producer means that you become a creator. To become a creator, that means that you are now in control of your resources. And if you are in control of your resources, that means that you've done a hard audit about how you self-govern your own self, your vehicle, your time, your materials, your resources, your friendships, your energy. Going back to this idea of, are you creating more energy or are you giving more energy? And so are you a battery that gives, or are you a battery that takes? Because at the end of the day, we're all batteries. And you got to look at yourself in your own ecosystem and see if you're actually contributing to the ecosystem, or you're just taking away from the ecosystem. And let's be honest, if you're an American, you're too used to the idea of taking from the government instead of going out and getting it. This is the big difference between immigrants and Americans. And this is why they praise immigrants, and why immigrants have built this country, is because immigrants arrive in America with a dream. They see the potential and they overcome the traumas, because nothing else matters but the potential of a better life for those that come after them. And you got to see it that way, because if you're an American who's been taken from their parents and now you're trying to build your dream, you have to first address the trauma. That's all I'm saying. Everybody has a little bit of trauma. I'm not saying immigrants don't. they have to overcome their own family traumas because there's a big learning gap, right, between those that know and those that do not know. Just like there's a big gap between those that have and those that do not have. And the idea here is that if you are participating in this reality that we are all a part of, then you got to make sure that you pay attention to where you divert your energy, because certain communities want to take from you more than they give to you. Think about that. Just to review this real quick with you, what you see in front of you is that your main resource is time. This is your birth to death cycle. Your most important asset is your productivity. It is the way that you provide value to the economy, not just take from the economy, because you don't want to be a consumer. You want to be a producer that is productively contributing some type of value to the economy so that the economy can move forward. Now remember, the economy can only move forward when there are transactions, which means that energy goes from one pocket to another. Now, this is ideal because sometimes, let's say you maybe know how to get money, but you don't know how to grow money. So it's best that you put money into a person who knows how to grow money, and then that way you can ask them for advice on how they're growing money, so that way next time when you have money, because of that transaction, you can grow that money because you have acquired energy, education, wisdom through the transaction in order to improve your own personal contribution or productivity to the economy. And this is important because a lot of people fall short and they end up having to require to borrow. But guess what? Borrowing creates the cycles of the economy, because guess what? The people that created our current economic system have understood that in order for new money to be created, someone's trust has to be put on the line. And now we're going to go deeper in this in multiple layers, but we're going to start here where trust, aka your word, determines your ability to get money at a certain cost. Sometimes if you're borrowing money from your parents or a sibling or a really close family member, there may not be an interest rate. But remember, the interest rate is going to cause you to have to pay extra than the amount that you took for a loan. So if I borrow $10,000 from my parents, maybe there's no interest. But if I borrow $10,000 from the bank, maybe there's a 10% interest. So I got to pay back $1,100 or $11,000. And so the idea here is that they're making at least 10% on their investment on you. Then that way they can make $1,000, that then in the future they can lend out that $1,000 to somebody else who maybe needs $1,000, and they can make 10% on that. So they will make $100 on top of that $1,000 that they made off of you. So basically they're going to make a free $1,100 because you took out that loan. Because remember, borrowing creates cycles. So you could either be in a position of producer or consumer, or lender and borrower. And these are the 4 rules that you want to play with, right? Because you have either produce, oh, that's a shitty one. Buckets. All right, so we have producer, consumer, and then we also have lender and borrower. If you are on this side, then it's kind of negative. If you are producing and lending, then it's kind of positive. It's just that simple. And you need to keep that in mind because you want to play on this side of the game board. All right, you don't want to play to being a consumer that borrows, because that lends you into what's called debt. Debt versus obviously what we call wealth, not profit, wealth. Because wealth is when you're able to grow your money with intelligence as opposed to putting yourself in a position of debt because you don't know how to continue to grow it and settle debts with what's called liquid cash. Remember, liquid cash is what settles debt. If you don't have cash, you cannot settle debt. And so don't go ahead and ask somebody for more loans in order to pay this. It won't do it. You have to settle it with cash. And the only way to get cash is to be productive and bring value to the economy, because that brings what we call dollars or cash. And that right there is what you want in order to become a lender. so that way when you are a producer, you could become a lender as long as your income, right, doesn't rise faster than your debt. And so number one, before we go anywhere, we have to make sure that you understand that you cannot let your debt rise faster than your income. Now, this was me because when I was young, I tried to put myself in a position of being a business owner when I did not have the business skill or the knowledge even to how to read my own books, so it caused a lot of issues. So then the second thing is you don't want to let your income rise faster than your productivity, because if you make a lot of money but you don't know how to grow it, that means that you didn't take the next step in what's called personal development, right? Education or personal development is really another way of saying, do you know how to help the world? Do you know how to provide more value to the economy? Because if you know how to make money, let's say that you know how to go ahead and run a business, or you know how to make money. Well, do you know how to go ahead and feed yourself? Do you know where humans come from? Do you know how to get others out of sickness, pain, and inflammation? And these are the things that if you have not covered these, because you've been so caught up on getting these, then guess what? That's the rate of productivity. Because your productivity is a direct reflection of the amount of time, the very first resource you are given, and research time pursuing your curiosity that you spend over the number of years. And over that, you have to become aware over the consistency times the awareness of what you lack. Awareness of lack and awareness of curiosity. Because if you can become aware of these, you can also recognize your strengths, and we can also recognize our weaknesses. Because when we do that, we can achieve the holy grail of productivity boost. Because remember, research and time times the action of spending this over multiple years divided by the awareness of whatever you want to consider or focus on for this many specific focus, times consistency, once again, repetition over time, not years, time, meaning days, then it increases your productivity boost, right? It's a boost. And so if you really want to boost your productivity, you first have to become aware of what you lack, what you're curious about, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Because if you spend a certain amount of time doing this, pursuing this foundation, that leads to this research. These are called notes. Your notes over time, right, they lead to taking action, which is how you move in your 24 hours. Action is how you move in your 24 hours. Because if you don't spend the time learning how to help others, or where we come from, or learning what it is to be alive and what it is to be conscious, because remember, understanding how your left and right brain provide you with the opportunity to become a vehicle of divine creation for the rest of the world to hear your message, then you're being limited by the fear, all right, by the fear of going into debt. Because once again, going into debt puts credit creates growth. That's what they want. So they want you in fear, but they want you in fear so that you can get into credit or into debt, because that way they can continue this entire cycle. The Ouroboros, the individual that eats themselves up because they cannot get their financial education under control, or they're financially illiterate, and therefore they keep eating into their own resources, but in the future taking away the potential of a brighter day for not only themselves, but their legacy. So you need to start thinking about, how can I go ahead and take control of my personal development to improve my productivity so that my income doesn't rise faster than my productivity? Because if you raise your productivity daily in order to stay relevant, then you become a competitor that's relevant to the marketplace. Therefore, you could innovate the marketplace. So think about these things, because if you really want to change the world, you got to be self-governed, and then you got to raise your productivity so that you can stay relevant to the marketplace. And all these things are going to continue to happen because there are going to be new millionaires. There are going to be new people going into risk of default and possibly being, homeless. And we got to recognize these things, because the world is changing so fast that before we go to the next layer of awareness, which is where to actually invest, right? the where, not the what, because this is the what. The what is the fact that most people don't want to recognize the lack of productivity per individual. So we started looking at GDP to debt ratios as a country because we start depending on the country to get us out of this mess. But the truth is, it's our personal responsibility to be self-governed, to take ownership of our own 24 hours, to increase our productivity, to create more cash, to get rid of our debt, to move to a place where we can be in wealth, and we can leverage debt to create more cash-producing assets. Look, you have to pay attention to this idea of a short-term debt cycle and a long-term debt cycle. But the idea here is that when you are looking at a perspective of 5 through 8 years, yeah, that's kind of what you as a person is going to go through, because time, let's say that this is, you die at, let's say, at 80 years old. Let's say that you make it to 80. But at 160 years from now, the next generation is barely going to be coming out of that cycle, because remember, the short-term debt cycle is going to your own lifetime, but then this other part is the generation coming after you, the next generation. And so if we don't act today with awareness that they are going to be put into a place that growth will be stagnant for a while, for this period of time, it'll be a dark period of time. Yeah, we're over here enjoying the fact that we can take out debt at 0% interest rates, right? But then there's going to be this period of the dollar is going to buy less, so devaluing of dollar. And so this is what's going on, because there's interest rates are at 0, which cause 0 to get a loan, means that later when we start going into this longer debt cycle, there's going to be a devaluing of the dollar, which means you're going to need more dollars to buy the same amount of goods, or it'll be sad to say, but we're going to need a significant amount more dollars to buy the same goods. And so what that means is that we are risking putting ourselves in a position where all the lenders here try to collect on the next generation. And guess what? This here becomes what we just saw, which was called Squid Games. Squid Games, right? Because you're going to have collectors hunting for their debt. Some of us are going to perceive it like it's a recession. Some people, those who are aware of the current reality versus their own perspective, the reality is that we are currently going through this cycle. We are entering this point right now where we are going to be going through it. This period of time right here is the 2030 agenda. This is the period of time when things get a little harder for the people in America, because there's this whole reconstruction of what is the actual world paradigm. And so what we have to look at is our current global economic model is determined by Austrian economics, which have given us the legacy system, now transitioning to the quantum financial system, or the decentralized financial system, where Nasara Jasara is starting to happen, which is why you're seeing all these different airdrops and you're seeing all these different free money giveaways that's happening in crypto, because they want the world to go into crypto. So yes, it's as much good as it is bad, but you need to learn what it actually means, because there are certain coins that will move all the world's money around, because they are solving the world's liquidity crisis. So as we go into this, we have to understand that the new quantum financial system that is being born out of the old Austrian economic system is going to transition to give us what is called crypto economics or tokenomics. And they're going to be operating under what's called DAOs. And these DAOs are going to have these forms of item ownership or identity ownership or recognition of ownership through what's called NFTs and QR codes and smart contracts. Because remember, the world is trying to move into what we call a quote-unquote green economy. This is a green revolution where technocracies, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Tesla, all these technocrats are trying to move us into this new world where technology dictates the way that governments should move, and also how much vote or how much of a voice each individual has in the economy or in the governments or in the country's destination based upon their own value to the economy. Remember, Computers want to figure out who's the most valuable to the economy because that goes back to the idea of trust. We're trying to create trust between the entire global web, hence the World Wide Web 3.0. We are moving into the Internet of Things, the Internet of Value. What value? Trust. Why? Because if you cannot prove your trust in this world, when you enter the metaverse, how would we know that you are worthy of X and Y? We are creating so many different gateways of identity, opportunities to pretend you're somebody or to act as somebody. And so what we need most is genuine individuals who are trying to sustain a proper form of trust or connection to the world. And so what we're trying to do here is find a reasonable way to transition the world into this new digital revolution of crypto. And so you're going to see a lot of projects rising up all over the place because everybody wants to prove that there is a right way to transition into crypto. And that's totally okay. I have my own vision as to how we should transition into crypto. But that's the thing. It is these individuals who are willing to put their hard work, their time, their patience, their money on the line to be able to provide the world with a bridge into crypto. That is what's going to revolutionize these industries, because you have to think of this entire board that you see here being simply a way to break away from what is being controlled by the central banks. Our current reality is being controlled by the central banks. And unless you change your perspective, you won't understand how to navigate the waters that are being created by the central banks, because they're trying to cause economic expansion and recession at the same time. You have new guys going in crypto, and then you have here, which is debt. And so these two different halves, you have the haves and the have-nots. And so this is where everything starts to go ahead and happen, where you could choose by either becoming very educated or a participant of one of these communities that is trying to bring value to your awareness of how the world actually works, so that way you could change your perspective so that you're not controlled by the central banks, because that's the sad reality of what's going on. And you could choose to position yourself in a way where maybe, just maybe, if you learn how to control your own financial assets, you could become your own bank by 2022 instead of being controlled by the central banks. And that's what I'm trying to go ahead and help people do, because as we keep moving towards a green economy, there are going to be those that understood what digital assets are, how to leverage them, how to play in the digital world, how to play in the real world, and how to build to participate in the metaverse. Remember, you have to think at a multidimensional level if you really want to excel at this dimension. And if you really consider the fact that there is only three things that matter to the seed of you. There's only three things. The seed of you is made up of how you move, how you eat, and how you invest your resources. Remember, that's the seed of you. That's what I plan on sharing with the world when I speak my messages. And that's what I plan on getting across to my kids and anybody that's in my community looking for a little bit more wisdom as to how to become about their life, how to become self-governed, and more importantly, how to become free. Thank you for watching. I hope to catch you on the next one, where we're going to cover some more topics that really should impact your perspective of how life really could improve if we changed our own habits and paradigms. But more importantly, let me leave you with step one: don't let your debt rise faster than your income. Number two, don't let your income rise faster than your productivity. And number three, don't let your productivity stay at the level that it's at. You have to push it daily in order to stay a relevant competitor in the marketplace, whatever that may be. Now, you may not see a lot of me, but that's because I'm always doing some research, helping others, or trying to make sure that I've controlled my own demons so that when I speak to you, I can give you my best self. So thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support. I can't wait to see you guys. And more importantly, stay tuned. Keep joining the DHO, because we'll be dropping some really, really incredible and hot news really soon, giving everybody the opportunity to vote on who has created the most powerful transformation from our 8-week challenge. That's right. We've been running a beta test of my ecosystem that we're launching for the last few weeks. And over the next few days, we'll be releasing pictures of all these participants who have engaged with us and taken a part in this beta test. And I need you guys' help, the community, to help me say who's the best transformation, because honestly, it's not my decision. Everybody's been doing a great job, giving it their best. But the most important thing here is that we decentralize the entire process. So members that are participating in the challenge have an accountability coach. When the results are created by both the coaches and the participants, all results will be given to the DHO. The DHO will vote on who they think is the best transformation. Best transformation will receive a bonus. The coach that transformed that individual will receive a gift. And more importantly, we will keep this party going, because it's all about you guys being able to connect, interact, and share your opinions of how the world could heal itself through movement, nutrition, and once again, developing trust to help each other learn about the best financial assets that we could invest in so that we could free ourselves from the 9 to 5. That's it. I'm a guy on a mission trying to help you be about your life, break away from the 9 to 5, and live without pain so you can live without limits. That's me. That's what I do, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.